you're fly fishing, it's important to look at the riverbed to see what insects are available, especially nymphs.
Riverbed with more permanent structures such as rocks, pebbles, and weed beds are more likely to hold insects. Simply pick up a piece of rock or pebble and have a look underneath it. You may come across mayfly nymphs in various colors and sizes. This is a hair in copper with a bead head. And this is a hair in copper with bead head but different color. This is a hare's ear nymph. And this is a pheasant tail nymph. The next bit would be to find a fishable water. This is a riffle, and typically fairly productive during hot summer days. And this is a deep, rapid pool. Typically, there will be a feeding frenzy at the end of the pool. If the water is a bit tea-colored, or the clarity is not great, a flashback pheasant tail works very well. Here's a nice brown trout caught at the end of the rapid pool with a flashback pheasant tail. And if the water is gin clear, it can be challenging for fishing, as the fish could see everything in detail. In situations like this, I've had more successes using flies with minimal details. I would use the Sawyer's pheasant tail.
Oh, fish on.
This is a beautiful rainbow trout that took my pheasant tail. Now, caddis aren't the only insects that the trout feed on. This is a caddis larva, and it forms a smooth case. In this case, we call it olinga, and this is one without a case. And when they reach maturity, they will form a case that almost looks like a cocoon, waiting for the right timing to hatch. You can even see the wings here. On this stretch of the Mataura is where I found these caddis. And these are some of my flies that imitate a caddis larva. With minimal hackle, they do sink and drift pretty effectively, and fairly effective on trout. Trout has excellent vision from the underneath. They could see most of the things on the surface of the water, in this case, mayflies. Therefore, it's important to look at the surface of the water, look for any signs of hatches. These are some of the dry flies that imitate a mayfly pretty well. A drag. This is an Adam's parachute. Dad's favorite. An Adams. And lastly, Hendrickson. On the spring creek, the water is so clear that you can see the fish. It is important to observe what the fish is doing. Here, there's a fish that's underneath the surface but is looking up, and it started rising, taking mayflies off the surface. So I've put on an Adams and casted it about half a meter ahead of the fish and let it drift down, and the fish took it.
My name is Valdir, and I caught this huge brown trout in the South Island with the help of my expert guide.
This fish took a size 16 Adams dry fly. Now when there's a spinner fold, which is towards the end of the life cycle of a mayfly, a fly that imitates a spinner can be very effective. Now sometimes on the riffles, when the temperature is right, you get hatches, and this is almost like a factory for insects.
Oh, Valdir, I got a fish.
Now, one of my most effective patterns when it comes to dry fly fishing is an emerger pattern. An emerger is basically an emerging mayfly coming out from a nymph into an adult mayfly state. Too often I've come across a fish that's been rising consistently, but despite whatever dry fly that I threw at it, it just wouldn't take it. And when I change it to an emerger, they typically take it within the first or the second cast.
Got him.
And last but not least, if you come across willow trees along the river banks, look for the sign of a fish that's feeding on the willow grubs. Willow grubs are usually fairly small. A fly that is a size 18 imitates it well. You will come across a fish that is consistently rising on something that you usually wouldn't be able to see. Chances are they are feeding on an emerger or willow grubs. Here I spotted a fish that's doing exactly what we just talked about. It was behind some willow trees. So I put on a size 18 willow grub imitation and it took it on my first cast. Now if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like and share. Stay subscribed and I'll be showing you how to catch one of those giant monster trout from Tekapo and Twizel. I'll be heading over there in about 3 weeks time. See ya!